Welcome to Seahawks Draft Blog live stream at the end of the 2024 draft, at least for the Seahawks. They've used all of their picks, so unless they trade back into the draft, and I don't. When you take an offensive lineman from Finley in the 6th round, I don't think you're trading back into the 7th round. So I think we're pretty safe there that they're done. And the next thing we will hear is when the undrafted free agency moves start to come in, which will not be too long after the draft. And I suspect that one of the big pluses of being able to trade out of round 7 and into the back end of round 6 as they did was the ability to just sort of crack on with that now and start making their calls and see who they want to bring in as undrafted free agents. Okay, I'm just going to say what I think. I know that one thing I have learned today is it doesn't matter how positive you are about a first-round pick or a second-round pick. If you call day 3 picks underwhelming on Twitter, there will be people who support the Seahawks who cannot accept that. I mean, nothing speaks to me to make me think less of somebody than an inability to hear anything ever said about your team that is not 100% positive. I mean, if you are incapable of handling that, I think that's quite pathetic. But I am going to say that I think that this haul of picks on day 3 is pretty underwhelming to me. I will explain why as we go along. But let's introduce the fellas. Robbie, what did you make of the day 3 picks that we've seen today? Seattle had a decent collection. What did you make of the decision-making from John Schneider?
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be, this is very kind of meat and potato kind of draft, getting a bunch of linemen and such, which was great. I don't mind that aspect of it. They missed, in my opinion, I felt like they missed the boat on several other players that were available. I think I'm interested to see how they coach these players and what they think, and maybe there's something that we're missing that we're not seeing on tape that these guys have, and maybe trusting Mike McDonald and developing some of these players. But I'm more frustrated seeing where some of these guys landed on other teams when we could have easily had him. Brendan Jackson was for me was an example of a player that ended up going the Rams, and they completely remade their defensive line. Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, and then adding Brendan Jackson, and it's just so disappointing to see them do so much with their picks, and then to see ours, it feels like, as you said, very underwhelming. I'm trying to take it with a grain of salt, but it's not. It didn't get me jumping out of the seat, right? It was not super exciting. So.
Yeah, there wasn't a single pick today that I thought, oh yeah, great. They've drafted this guy, and in day 3, for the last 2 drafts, that definitely happened. So I will talk a little bit more about why I thought it was underwhelming in a bit. Adam, have you got a thought? We've not talked since the draft started. So how do you feel about the draft class now that you can see it in its completion?
I think I said to you guys in our messages on Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, that the first 2 picks to me struck me as a team that are looking to begin a process of rebuilding the trenches. They're not going to give up stuff from next year to put into this year. They're just going to take, what is there, the best player at the best position of need. And I thought they did that really well on Thursday, Friday. I think we probably all woke up this morning quite happy with what they'd done with the resources. Today, it just feels a little bit boring, really. And I think I read a lot of the comments back that you got from your tweet comments, and a lot of people, instinctively said, well, what about him? And what about him? And ultimately, you can count the guys on day 3 that have been huge successes on one hand when people start saying, well, how can you doubt them? They've drafted X, Y, and Z in these days. But ultimately, the players they have drafted on day 3 that have turned into the stars that people are hoping for, inevitably, they've had amazing traits one way or the other. Woolen had the speed that you could build on. Chancellor, obviously the physical traits. Sherman was so highly sought after. But the guys they've signed today just don't seem like guys you're looking at from a trait standpoint where you're saying, well, that's, a potential. The upside on that guy is, if it all clicks, the ceiling's, there is no ceiling on this guy. It just feels like they've signed a lot of just gap fillers. And when you've got these day 3 picks, I don't really understand the process of that, when ultimately the first day of the draft and the second day of the draft suggested that you're doing something on a 2-year project to fill spots. So yeah, it just felt a little bit dull, I think.
I think that's a good point in terms of when I'm sort of looking at day 3, I always think in round 4 and round 5, it's better to just take chances on players that have got a lot of potential, a lot of upside, that for whatever reason are still there in round 4, round 5. So when you look at Max Crosby, the reason that he was around in round 4 is because he basically had a drinking problem. But you do your homework on that. You try and work out whether or not you want to bring him in. And the Raiders took the chance, and it's paid off for them. There's always a reason why players fall into that range. And I don't think the Seahawks did any of that today. I don't think they looked for who are the diamonds in the rough. I don't really feel like they were doing anything with that. They were just taking players that were, at least in my opinion, really limited in their upside, but might be able to fill depth behind players who are already on the roster. So when I watched Tyrese Knight, I thought, do you know what? He's very active. There's absolutely no doubt in his commitment on a football field. Like, he will throw his body around. He will put his head down and run head first into the area where he thinks the ball carrier is going to be and give absolutely everything. And for that reason, I like the guy and was quite happy to put him sort of in a 5th round grade. But you can't put him any higher because his testing's not elite. So you don't think, well, he's got the physical potential there if it all comes together to be like a superstar linebacker. He cannot play within structure in college. Like, he was just doing what, he kept making decisions and you're kind of thinking, whoa, don't do that. And then he'd do it anyway. He's going to take a lot of coaching up to sort of trust him to play in the NFL. So I kind of look at it and thinking, for me, ceiling is sort of, you might be able to get into a place where if he has to play some snaps, it's not a disaster, and he could be a good special teamer. And then at the top of round 4, it wasn't the top of round 4, was it? Because they traded down at 118 with the 118th pick, and I'm looking at who else is available. It just seemed to me like there were players available, and I know other teams took them, who you thought, wow, take a chance on that guy, and he might be starting for you in 2 years. And then the other thing with the Seahawks is that I think when you look at all of the top teams, they've all got sort of key contributors who have generally been drafted in round 4, round 5. The Niners are a good example of that with Kittle, with Greenlaw, people like that. Fred Warner was a late 3rd round pick. The Seahawks haven't had enough of those players over the years that they've found in that range and have ended up coming on to be plus starters, not just starters or competition, but like plus starters. And I don't think any of the players they've taken on day 3 are going to fit into that mold. And I certainly don't think Tyrese Knight did. I think with AJ Barner, I have a real issue with that one, because when you watch him, he's very clearly a blocking tight end, but he's 250 pounds. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, you can watch the tape, and I have, to all the people on Twitter telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. I've watched the tape, and I saw somebody who could block well for Michigan to enable them to run the ball that they want to run it. But when I'm watching the tape and I'm looking at, okay, 250 pounds. When I'm thinking about the NFL, I have to think, can this 250 pound individual do what he's doing at Michigan in the NFL? Because typically a blocking tight end is not 250 pounds. He is 265, like Will Disley. So can you add weight? And people are saying we could add weight. It's not as easy as just saying, well, just, stick an extra 15 pounds on your body. I mean, try that. I mean, you can't just get a Pizza Hut every day until he's gained 15 pounds. It's not as easy. He may be maxed out in terms of his size. It's not easy to be 250 pounds. Let's just put it that way. So he might be quite maxed out to be 250 as it is. Getting even more weight on that body. Can he do what made him good at Michigan in the NFL at 250? I have doubts about that. So both players for me were like, okay, I can kind of see what they do, but 5th round. And if the Seahawks take him in the 5th or even the 6th round, you go, yeah, fair enough. If they'd have taken these 2 guys in the 5th and the 6th round, you could go, yeah, I've got no issues with those picks whatsoever. But you take them in the 4th, and then you see some of the other players that were going in the 4th, and you just think, not sure about that. And then, players like, I was not a fan of Nehemiah Pritchett. I mean, I want cornerbacks who can track the ball. When the ball's in the air, he does not get his head around. And his tackling's poor, which is a black mark. and his run defense is not very good. I think both of the cornerbacks that they've taken, by the way, will be targets in the running game. And that just bothers me a little bit, especially with the way that they supposedly want to play. It just worries me a little bit. So I kind of come out of it afterwards thinking, I don't know about this. I just don't see. I would have liked to have seen a bit more glitz and glamour. And that's not because I just want the dopamine hit of being excited by a player who was supposed to go earlier and the Seahawks got them. I mean, I can give you some names of players. So, for example, Baltimore took TJ Tampa. And I don't know why he lasted to round 4, because I think he's a terrific player. But he did, and Baltimore were the ones that took a chance on him. Why didn't the Seahawks take a chance on him then? Because he must be a fit for the scheme if he's gone to Baltimore. Why was, say, AJ Barner or Tyrese Knight more attractive in the 4th round when Baltimore were prepared to take him in the 4th round? Like, that would have been a value pick for me. Buffalo got Cedric Van Pran in the 5th round. I think he could be a starting center in the NFL. I think he can play guard as well. You know, they got Ulafosio from Washington, the linebacker, in a later range than you got Tyrese Knight. I think I had Ulafosio a whole round higher than Tyrese Knight. He's got an injury history, but I think he's a better player. Kansas City, who are pretty good at finding value in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round range, took Jared Wiley, the tight end, after you took AJ Barner. And they took Jaden Hicks, the safety from Washington State. 2 really value picks. The Steelers came into this draft with question marks on their offensive line. They drafted Troy Fatanu and Zach Frazier to address that. And then when they got to the round 4 and Mason McCormick was still there, they thought, what the hell, we'll take him as well. Like, now they have a loaded offensive line, depth, talent, youth. Why didn't the Seahawks do that? They took a guard. Everyone on Twitter is very happy with the guard they took in the 6th round. I think he went exactly where he should go, and I'm not that excited about him, frankly. And then I think the worst one for me was when Malik Mustafa went 3 picks after the Seahawks took Barner. Hufanga, Hufanga, the safety in San Francisco. In 2021, I had a 2nd round grade on him, and the Niners took him in the 5th round. I had a 2nd round grade on Mustafa, and the Niners took him in the 4th round. I just really fear that history's repeated there. And he just had so much upside and potential that was it not worth taking a chance on that? Like the Niners have done in the same range that you were picking, rather than just taking a blocking tight end who's 250 pounds when you've already signed Pharaoh Brown as a blocking tight end. Like the Rams taking Brennan Jackson, Robbie. I've got something else I need to say about the Rams. Remind me of this before the end as well. And just sort of Washington, Washington took Jordan McGee, who had the best short shuttle amongst all the linebackers. That's usually been a good measure of translating to the NFL. And then they took Dominique Hampton, who I obviously really liked. It's not just all about my grades. I get it. I'll get a whole bunch of things wrong in this draft, and I do every year, and I get some things right. Robbie, it just felt underwhelming, just completely underwhelming. Like I think the success of this draft is now. I just don't see a lot of upside with these day 3 picks. I think the success and failure of this draft is going to come down to Byron Murphy and Christian Haynes, who I think were really good picks. I thought they were on a trajectory as a grade. Yes, at the end of day 2. And day 3, I think it's probably worthy of a more modest prediction there. They had enough picks to do some of these meat and potatoes picks. They could have at least had, I think, the 4th round taken a shot to try and get a bit more glory than they got.
Yeah, I think it hinges a lot on the coaching staff now, because you're asking a lot of the coaching staff to develop these guys, and maybe we're used to players not really being developed well, but I think it's going to fall to the coaching staff to make these guys significant impact players. And yeah, I just felt like it was a very underwhelming draft. And you're right, the first 2 picks, great. I was stoked by both of them. I'm excited to see both of them play, and maybe it will just hinge on those 2, and that's going to be it. But I feel like there was some missed opportunities, and if these players turn out to be something, that means the coaching staffs really did what they were supposed to do, and they're banking on themselves to make these players something.
What did you make of the trade down as well? Because the Seahawks had 102. They traded it to Denver and got a fifth rounder out of it. But then, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were other teams then in the fourth round trading up using like third round picks next year to sort of move up. And the Seahawks moved down 19 spots
And they picked up a
to,
fifth and
and they
sixth.
got a fifth and a
Yeah.
swapped to sixth for a seventh. It didn't feel like a great deal. And then so like the Broncos got Troy Franklin from that, and then sort of the next few picks, Dadrian Taylor Demerson, I think is a really good safety. The Cardinals took him at 104. Justin Aboigbe, I think is really good value in round 4 from Alabama. Went to the Chargers. Cedric Gray went to the Titans. I thought this was the kind of range he should have gone. Theo Johnson, I thought was a fringe second round pick. Went to the Giants at 107. I'm just sort of looking down if there's anybody else that sort of stands out. Tanner Bortolini was 117. I think he's a really good player for the fourth round. Great athlete as a center. And then you get Tyrese Knight. I'm just not sure that, like, there's plenty of names there that to me were quite interesting, exciting, upside. Instead, you end up with AJ Barner and Nehemiah Pritchett. I'm just not, for me, Adam, that's disappointing. And especially because other teams seem to get more out of trades in round 4.
Yeah, it's so hard really to add much to what you've said, really. I mean, it just doesn't feel like you'd love to have a couple of picks today, like we did with Woolen a couple of years ago, where you can't wait to see what this guy's got in camp, because it could be an absolute disaster. I remember Hugh Millen saying on the radio that, he probably would be the biggest project in team history to turn him around. And they did. But he had certain things that you could look out for in camp and say, I can't wait to see that guy do that. And there's actually, because of the first 2 picks being a guard and a defensive tackle, which is not things that are going to flash, there's nothing really in camp that you're looking forward to out of any of these drafted players that you can say, I can't wait to see him do that. And that's, this is very much a fan talking as opposed to how, coaches need to build their teams, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's that exciting, does it?
No, I think using Tariq Woolen is a good example. There's nobody like Woolen who, it's just that bit of mystery there. Like, wow, if this guy worked, just imagine what he could be. So unless you want to feel that way about an offensive tackle from Finley, which I'd never even heard of until 3 weeks ago when Tony Pauline reported that he'd had an official visit with the Seahawks, unless you want to sort of buy into that, there's not really anything. Like, I will not be going to bed tonight and thinking, just one more AJ Barner highlights video on YouTube. That's just not happening. And I know what Tyrese Knight is. I kind of, he was one of the first players that it was revealed that had an official 30 visit with the Seahawks. I know what he is, and what he is isn't very exciting. I think they got a bit of value with the second cornerback, DJ James. I think they took him around later than I expected. Some people had been like round 3, round 4, which was, I think, a bit of a nonsense. But I thought he was a round 5 pick. They got him in round 6, fair enough. But apart from that, it's not exciting. And it's not exciting in a solid, whatever, they're going to get after it. It's just a bit of a boring draft to me. And Robbie, the problem with it is, I think the Seahawks need a bit more than this. Like, they're a 9-8 team for whatever. And listen, I know there's probably 10 different reasons why they're 9-8. There may be more. And 1 to 8 might be Pete Carroll's fault. And he's not here anymore. So the new staff might rectify a lot of the issues. And I suspect there's a fair bit of that the Seahawks feel like they've done a better job than the team has shown over the last couple of years in adding talent, and that the new coaching staff will be able to do a better job than not even so much Carroll, but the people that Carroll surrounded himself with, his son, Clint Hurt, Tater, Shane Bloody Waldron. I suspect that they think that the new staff will get more out of the group, which is fine. But they were still a 9-8 team for 2 years. And as we sit here today, I don't really feel like the free agency period and the draft has truly elevated the team. I'm really looking forward to. I mean, Byron Murphy is exciting, and I probably will be watching highlight videos of him tonight, given how underwhelming this whole third day is. He is exciting, and I'm excited to see what the new staff can do. But I just don't know, Robbie, if they've done enough to make me think this is going to be an exciting season. I'm kind of anticipating it might be more of the same. That there's going to be sort of good moments, bad moments, and when it all comes out in the wash, it's kind of 9-8 again.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at what some other teams did, right? Rams and the Niners that you're talking about. Again, I'm not overly impressed with the Cardinals draft, but I mean, they still drafted some great players. But you look at the NFC West just alone, and you think, man, did we do enough? And I'm glad they double dipped in the O line. I really wanted them to do. We talked about that after day 2. That I was like, man, they could really still add some talent there, and they did. And I guess it wasn't the players that I wanted, right? And I think maybe that's part of the issue. It wasn't as exciting as I thought, it could have been. Again, it just falls back onto the coaching staff. Like they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves now to develop these players. And yeah, I worry that you might be right, that it might be a hard first year for Mike McDonald, and or I'm completely wrong, and he's able to turn that defense around. And I've going to look at the safety position. Like, why didn't we draft a safety? We clearly I thought we
draft
needed
a single one.
No, but maybe they're really high on Rashawn Jenkins, and maybe they have high hopes for Jordan Love. I'm not really sure. Maybe their plan is to move Kobe Bryant into the safety position, and maybe that's why they drafted 2 corners instead.
Yeah, it is strange though. I thought there was enough talent at safety to at least spend one of their picks at safety.
Well, and the other thing is, like, why don't we draft any Huskies? Like, I thought for sure, like I said, there was 2 things that were for certain. We were going to draft a Michigan player and a Washington Husky player. We didn't draft a Husky. That surprises the hell out of me.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like we maxed out the benefit of having, as many former Michigan and Husky coaches on the staff.
Yeah.
Somebody made a good point out before I want to come to Adam about where he feels that the team are. Somebody made this, and I wrote about it, and it's just been brought up in the comments, so I want to bring it up. Anthony Bradford, I think I'm right in saying, played exclusively right guard at LSU, and they drafted him a year ago in round 4. Christian Haynes played exclusively right guard, and the guy from Utah that they drafted today played exclusively right tackle, right guard, was a right-sided offensive lineman. That's 3 players who have never played on the left side of the line. So what's the plan here? Which one of them's moving over? And we've seen this before. Like they draft players and shift them around the line, and they've done it like, oh, we'll play Ethan Posick at tackle in training camp. He was a center at LSU, and he's become quite a decent center. And since he goes somewhere else and plays his actual position, Justin Britt will move him around, and would it really kill them to have drafted a left guard? Could they have got somebody else? Trevor Keegan, for example, was knocking around. Could they have taken him instead of Barner or something? I don't know. Like, does everybody have to be on the right side? I don't know. It just seems a little bit strange to me. Like, one of these guys is going to have to get out of their comfort zone, and maybe they'll be fine with it. But I'll never forget the offensive lineman saying, switching sides on the line is a bit like wiping your ass with your weak hand. I've never done that. And there's a good reason for not doing it. So why would you do it to an offensive lineman? Make them do it. Okay. I promise we'll get onto some maybe some more positive things, because I know that I know what the reaction is when we have these kind of streams, and it usually involves angry comments. So, Adam, where do you think the team is now? We've had the main part of the team building process is done. Free agency's gone. Draft's gone. Really, I think they've made one significant addition. Maybe you could argue Haynes is the second. I think everything else is kind of meh. Like their main addition is Byron Murphy. Their second main addition is Christian Haynes. Apart from that, it's the staff change, which has completely changed. How do you feel this Seahawks team is now compared to the one that finished last season?
I was literally just going to say, I wonder if you handed Mike McDonald the roster from the Cardinals game versus the roster today. And it's probably slightly damning that I think you could quite easily say you'd have to have a discussion and think about it. I don't think you're looking at the roster as it is now and say, well, they've clearly got better. Having lost 2 starting safeties, 2 starting linebackers, whatever you thought about those 4 players, I don't think they've necessarily replaced those with any clear quality. Now, Nwosu's going to come back, and that should help the line. Obviously, Murphy's going to help there, and you've got Haynes. Is Haynes going to be definitely better than Damian Lewis in his first year? I don't know. Hopefully, his upside will be higher. And I suppose you're just asking the question is, are the coaches definitely going to make the difference? And I suppose you've made this decision to part ways with Pete Carroll, and it's a huge decision for the franchise to make. And you brought this hopefully amazing future head coach in who's going to have this same longevity, if not more. But I don't think you're necessarily looking at the whole package and saying this is clearly going to be better than last year. And look, that's fine, because the 2024 season, unless something happens, is not going to be the last season in NFL history. They will probably play in 2025 and 2026. So it doesn't have to be better straight away. We don't have to win the Super Bowl this year. But, when I think about when you rebranded the whole site to the rebuild and you're looking at linear progression, I don't necessarily see that at all in the last few years. And I guess you're hoping with a fresh start with a head coach, you might see some, green shoots coming through the roster in the draft and free agency in particular. And I think free agency was probably punctuated by a lot of people saying, we had all this money and now we don't have any of that money. It doesn't look that different. That's weird. And then the draft, you're now looking at thinking, we got all these picks and, we kind of got some players, but it doesn't look like that different or interesting. And I think that's probably where I'm a bit disappointed about it. And it's absolutely fine. Like, I can see all the comments that are, being negative, whatever, get behind, they've drafted. Great. And if you want to believe that they're doing well, then absolutely fine. But I don't think it's that interesting or exciting what they've done so far. And I think they're asking a lot of the coaches to give them the competitive advantage on what they had last year.
Yeah, I don't understand some of the comments or some of the tweets that you get. Like, it's as if, unless you are willing to constantly say everything is amazing. And listen, the strange thing is, guys, is if I said to you, we could have said this before we came on air. I could have said to you, right, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to be really positive about everything. We're going to say that every pick's amazing. We're going to give it an A+ grade. I'm going to do a thumbnail for the video, which is a picture of John Schneider with a crown on and a fur coat and a cigar. And I'm just going to put A+ in the image and put it on. And you know what? That would get me 20,000 plus views, because the last 2 where I said it got an A+ draft got that number of views and made me a lot of revenue. Okay. If I just wanted, I could have done that today and I could have made so much more money out of this video. Right. And you know what? There are so many Seahawks channels out there. No names mentioned. Half shilling. It's kind of rhyming slang. That just do that. They say everything's amazing, and then they get a load of views and loads of revenue. Rest history. Okay, we could have done that today, but I'd rather just be honest about it and have an honest conversation. And when I actually look at this roster right now, I just, to me, it feels like the years are going by. The needle's not really moving the Seahawks closer towards an exciting championship run. Then they're sort of still, I think this draft just firmly secures Seattle's place right in the middle ground of the NFL. That they will go into next season with their 34-year-old quarterback who can be ranked anywhere between 12th best in the league or 16th best in the league, with their O-line that's kind of cobbled together, sort of. Not bad, not great. Well, some say it would be bad. That they will have some positives on defense and some negatives, and there are some question marks going into the season. But ultimately, when push comes to shove, the Niners and the Rams will be better, and perhaps teams like the Lions, for example, might be better. And if they play the Cowboys, depending on what they are next season, based on a slightly weird off season for Dallas, that the Seahawks are just going to be a tier below all of that. And when they made the Russell Wilson trade, that was kind of like in 2022, that was like, okay, it's a reset. Fine. You know, with a 9-8 was seen as quite an interesting season with some ebbs and flows that were quite entertaining. And then you go on a year and it's like, well, yeah, not quite as entertaining this year because, you know, there weren't the exciting wins and the schedule was a bit crap. So they kind of won the games they were expected to win and whatever. Like next season, you could realistically expect them to take a step forward. And as I look at the roster right now, I kind of think I'm not sure they will because the schedule's harder and they've got some staff that have never done this before. Like Mike McDonald's never been a head coach before. And Ryan Grubb's never been an offensive coordinator before. And Adam Dirty's never been a defensive coordinator before. There might be some growing pains there. And yeah, someone's just said my accent is fake. What do you think what accent do you think I actually have? Do you think I put a voice on for this? I don't understand. I honestly don't. Of all the, ways to have a go, I did not think the accent was going to come under fire today. The comments eternally distract me while I'm trying to make a relevant point. Anyway, Robbie, is there some sense in that? I don't see sort of the off seasons are kind of coming and going, and I'm waiting for that sort of big off season where it's just like, oh yes, that's going to get them. We know what that feels like. I'm not saying that they need to repeat Bennett and Averill and Percy Harvin and Russell Wilson and whatever stuff like that again. I'm not expecting that level, but I do sort of feel like I'm still waiting for that off season. I'm still the accent thing still in my mind. I'm still waiting for that off season, Robbie, that's going to sort of just push them over the top and into the range that we all desperately want them to be in. And that maybe we'll be back here in 12 months, Robbie, and we'll be probably having the same bloody conversation we had this year. Like, is it ever going to happen?
I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by the comments right now. I don't even know what question you just asked, but okay, I'm trying to like compose myself here. I've been laughing for a while.
I would like the chat to sort of know, like people are saying,
Nigerian.
This is a good one. Like, yeah, Robbie's a native of Nigeria.
I think. Okay, I'm gonna try to circle it back here. I understand why people are like, well, we haven't seen them play yet. It's hard to judge these players, but all the work that we do actually watching the games or like picking the players that we like, it's obviously going to be hard to like not be disappointed when the guys that you really want don't get selected, and that happens every single year. And when we say it was kind of boring, it was. I mean, it was kind of underwhelming. There's not guys that you look at and go, you see a ton of potential and you understand like, well, how did this guy drop this far? There's no one in that and from round 4 on that made me think, well, we got this guy way earlier than we should have, or whatever, or he dropped farther and we could have had him and we got him and we're super excited, but nothing like that made me feel that way. And so I get it. Like, we'll take it with a grain of salt. Like, the coaching staff may have they have a better idea of what these players are going to be able to do for them, and we have no idea. But Rob put a lot of effort in his board and watched a lot of tape, and I trust his opinion. And I've went back and watched a lot of tape myself of these guys. I just feel super underwhelming. I don't think there's anything. It's not trying to be too negative. Obviously we want these guys to succeed, and if they come up and blow up and are perennial all-stars, and great, then we'll come on and say, hey, we were wrong about that. But just, I don't know, for some reason it just doesn't feel all that. Sorry, Rob, what was your actual question?
No, I think this. Well, first of all, I must admit I've seen it a couple of times in the comments now. I just want to say, I don't think it's a very convincing argument to just say if only John Schneider had listened to Rob, blah blah blah. Like, I'm not for a second suggesting that I know more than John Schneider, but let's also embrace that John Schneider doesn't get everything right, and that there's been various times over the years where someone, such as myself, or another person who has watched a bit of tape or whatever, has said, I don't agree with that choice, and that person has been proven to be correct. And that's it. It's the same with every GM. Every GM makes picks that somebody somewhere is going to disagree with, and it doesn't make the GM automatically right or the person automatically wrong. GMs get things right and wrong all the time. So I'm loving the comments. So the question I was asking Robbie was, when are they going to have that elusive off season that pushes this team over the top? Because we're 3 drafts removed now. There's been 3 drafts since the Russell Wilson trade. They haven't drafted a single quarterback in any of the 3 drafts since Russell Wilson was dealt. They haven't. They've used a lot of picks. I don't think they've necessarily had the kind of class that you think, right, okay, that's it. Now we're talking. Now we're going to move on and get in the mix with the Eagles and the Niners and the I'm going to include the Rams in that. I think the Rams are wherever Sean McVay and Matt Stafford are there, and Cooper Kupp and now Puka Nacua, and they've lost Aaron Donald obviously, but they have added some defensive pieces that I like in this draft. I think we're waiting for that off season, Robbie, where they break free of where they currently are, which is 9-8, and propel themselves towards legit contender. And I'm not sure this off season has got them there, Robbie.
I think they got better. That's for sure. I mean, they definitely got better. I think the improvement, you can see it across the board. I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, listen, they cleared some cap space. I think Rashawn Jenkins is going to be a better safety than Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams.
I agree with that.
I think their linebacker crew is better. They can cover better. I think the defense is going to be significantly better. I don't know about the offense, but I do think that you add a couple of these guards into the mix and help push each other to get a little bit better. I do think they've gotten better. Do I think they've put them over the top? No, but I do think they're a better football team. And I'm really curious to see how the Mike McDonald effect comes into play and what he can do with this team.
Yeah, actually, you've won me around there, Robbie. That was a compelling argument, because I think you're right. I think the changes at linebacker, this is no disrespect to Bobby Wagner, but I do think it will help the team. Just from the fact that they've got some youth and speed there, I think will help. And I think at safety, I was just ready to not see Jamal Adams again, and I'm happy to see what the next group is. And Byron Murphy will have a big impact. So I think you're right. The defense will be improved. I think the question mark is more on offense, because we just don't know how the Ryan Grubb offense, or how Ryan Grubb will take to being an NFL coordinator. And I don't think they've made any sort of huge, significant moves there, short of what they already had. So it could be that they suddenly find a way to make DK Metcalf the receiver we've always wanted him to be, with that size and incredible athleticism and like proper true number one. That could easily happen because they managed to turn Rome Odunze into that. But I also just wonder, I guess, Adam, and this is going to piss a lot of people off, I'm about to say, I think things will just be so much more energizing, exciting when the Seahawks finally just make an investment at quarterback. Like, if they have this team and then spent a first round pick on a quarterback, or made a traded up for one, or whatever, I think you'd suddenly go, oh, hang on a minute. Like, have they got somebody who can be their CJ Stroud, let's say? And that could be the thing that elevates the team on to that next level. But they just seem so risk averse. They're just, like, John's gone through another draft. It's 15 drafts now, and he's only drafted 2 quarterbacks. Like, he just refuses, doesn't he, to just roll the dice on even anybody in like the day 3 range, just to chuck them into the mix and see if they've got something there. And yeah, I think that's probably the one thing, isn't it, Adam? That I mean, if you'd have said to me immediately after that Wilson trade, by the way, they won't spend a single pick on a quarterback in 3 drafts, and Geno Smith will be the starter going into 2024, I think I would not have believed that.
The thing for me, Rob, with that is that if you'd introduced me to Robbie and said, got this guy, Robbie, he absolutely loves ice cream. Okay. He's got some ice cream at home, but every year, once a year, he's going to go to an ice cream parlor. Once a year. And all year I hear, oh my God, Robbie loves ice cream. He loves it. He can't get enough ice cream. And in 12 trips to the ice cream parlor, Robbie gets there and he's like, I've got ice cream at home. He left once in 12 years with half a scoop of like something bad, like rum and raisin ice cream.
No, he went with plain old vanilla.
But in the other years, he's never had the ice cream. You can't tell me that he loves ice cream that much. And that the thing that annoys me about the Schneider thing, I don't mind if he doesn't want to take quarterbacks, but I can't listen every year in the whole draft period. Well, John Schneider's through the Green Bay system. You know what they're like. You know, they love taking quarterbacks every year. And John Schneider's just waiting for that opportunity. Enough. It's enough now. I'm just so bored of it. I don't mind not taking the quarterback, but I just can't go through this nonsense every year of being told just how much John Schneider loves taking quarterbacks, only for him to have countless opportunities to do it and never do it. And that has been annoying me so much all weekend. It just doesn't equate anymore.
Have we had the ice cream analogy before? I had a real sense of deja vu during that.
I may have done it on my own show 3 years ago.
Okay, because I'm sure I've heard that somewhere, and I heard it in your voice as it was kind of like reminded in my head. And then for some reason I thought I was going to ask Robbie whether he actually likes ice cream.
I thought I could bury it.
But then I thought I think I might have asked Robbie if he likes ice cream once before on a separate stream.
I could have buried it 3 years ago, the bit, but I can't because they still won't get a bloody scoop of ice cream.
I mean, they didn't even just take one quarterback, did they? Just to sort of go, well, there we go. We took one this year, so there we go. You stop asking about it now. Like there was no, they actually went through a whole draft again without taking a quarter. Do you like ice cream, Robbie?
This whole podcast is spiraling out of control. Just out of control.
Just answer the damn question.
I do like ice cream. Yes, I do. And I will say, but you did make a point yesterday, Rob, that you were like, you don't want them to take a quarterback. You said that yesterday. At this point, past the fourth year, you're no longer excited about them with the opportunity to take a quarterback. So
yeah,
maybe they felt that way. They're like, and people have said, I see, people saying that Howell is the quarterback this year. And I kind of agree with that. Now that they didn't take a quarterback, you can see that, they did make a move for a quarterback, though they didn't draft one. I guess a 5th round quarterback from last year, but he still lit us up and, he has the potential there. Maybe they think that they can coach him up. I get him. Not saying don't get excited. I'm not, don't get wound up. I'm not saying Sam Howell is the answer, but they did make an opportunity to go get a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sam Fox would have lit up Seattle, let alone Sam Howell. And anybody had a chat. You might not know who that is, Robbie, by the way. I think you probably have to be from over here to know who Sam Fox is. Anyway, I take your point on board that, and I've written my article already that will go after this stream. And in it, I've actually said, do you know what? I'm as frustrated as I am that the Seahawks have gone through another draft without, and I am so lockstep with everything Adam said. I feel exactly the same way. It's a brilliant analogy, and I agree with it 100%. But then I also think this draft, it's semi-understandable because 6 quarterbacks went off the board in the top 12. Then nobody went until Rattler at 150. The entire league gave its review of Spencer Rattler in this draft by just not taking him. So, like, if somebody had took Rattler, I don't know, if the Seahawks had 3 third-round picks, passed on Rattler each time, and then on the very next pick, someone had took Spencer Rattler in round 3, that would have been irritating. But for everybody to sort of pass on him, you kind of think, well, I'm, whatever. Clearly just didn't rate him. And that's why they traded for Howell to avoid missing out completely, which unless I've missed something with the Rams, they have not drafted anybody, have they? They've had to go and sign Jimmy Garoppolo. They wanted Howell. They've gone and signed Jimmy Garoppolo. So to that extent, it all makes sense. It's just hard, I gave Sam Howell a 4th round grade. Sam Howell's PFF grade last season was on a par with Zach Wilson's. So he didn't play that well. Like, he had a lot of interceptions. I think there's been a bit of overly rose-tinted glasses going on with Howell's performance in Washington just because he's in Seattle now. I mean, I don't know if you heard the interview we did on 710. If you're struggling if anybody out there is struggling for the sleep at the minute, go and listen to Sam Howell's interview on 710 because you will be straight off. You'll get a really good night's sleep. It is so unbelievably dull. The idea of him sort of standing in the locker. I mean, there was always that famous clip of Andy Dalton going, "Playmakers on 3, 1, 2, 3, playmakers." Like, Sam Howell cannot. The thought of him sort of being in there with it, come on, guys, let's get out there and beat the Niners. Like, it's hard to imagine. He's a bore. He's a bit of a bore. Let's just put it that way. There's not a great deal of charisma there. So they're going to have to eventually sort of make a move. But how long can you keep sort of making these arguments, Robbie? Like, if we're sort of 2-3 years down the line and they're still like, oh yeah, but they couldn't quite get up for him, and they were just a bit out of range for them, and I didn't want to take him in round 4 because, he looked at you funny in that meeting. You know what? Eventually, you've kind of got to just be seen, haven't you? You've got to be seen to be taking shots. It can't just be Howell. Like, bring a couple of guys in. Let them go at it. You can't just keep trundling along, especially when this team made it very clear, in my opinion, that they were open to trading Geno Smith around combine time with their actions and the words that they passed on to people like Adam Schefter. So, can I read this comment as well? Can I read this? Because this is just manna from heaven for me. And usually on Twitter, I can't reply to stuff like this, but I'm going to do it here. I wonder what Brits would think if there were a couple of Yanks who never played soccer critiquing a British soccer team's picks the way a couple of Brits who have never played football are criticising the Seahawks. I can tell you what would happen in that scenario. If there were American football, and I'm going to call it football, not soccer, because it's effing football, mate. It's not soccer, okay? You use your feet to kick the ball. It's not soccer. You can lend the word from us, but it's football, right? If an American fan came over and said, I am going to talk about Adam's team, Spurs, and he watched every Spurs game and committed hours and hours every day to writing long-form articles about Spurs, in talking about Spurs with friends online, living his life through Spurs, I would have absolutely no problem if that person then turned around to me and said, Eric Dyer's a bit crap, innit? I wouldn't have any problem with that whatsoever, okay? And the fact that he's American would mean nothing to me. I happen to think that I've probably done more work than most American Seahawks fans on this draft. So don't give me this, you're British, you don't know what you're talking about, you've never played the game. Spare me that nonsense.
And you faked your accent, mate.
Yeah. Yeehaw! I'm actually from the deep south. That's a terrible accent. I'm not doing that again.
Not doing it again.
But it's so frustrating. Like that argument that, well, you're British and you never, like, as if, like, I'm not being funny, but some of you who played the game over there probably played it as well as me and Adam could play it, quite frankly. I mean, like, it's probably best that, you'd have been better off not playing your football. And that's not qualifying you anymore to tell us that we don't know what we're talking about. Anyway, I sidetracked by the comments again, and I want to get to the super chats as quickly as possible. So, Robbie, can I just come back to you on, and Adam as well? At what point do the Seahawks have to just be seen to be taking some chances here? They can't just be forever sort of ruining the fact they've not been able to take a QB, can they?
Well, that was a little bit of why I was making the point last night that I was hoping that they would draft a quarterback, just for the simple fact that next year seems to be that year. You would imagine. I don't think Geno will be, unless he comes in and plays lights out and takes us deep into a playoff run. I don't imagine him being the quarterback next year. And I don't want to hedge our bet of just having Howell on the team. And if we had somebody, even if it's Spencer Rattler or Michael Pratt or whoever it is on board, at least you're not hedging your bet and saying, well, now we have to bring in a veteran for a $4 or $5 million or whatever the case might be. So I think this is this is it. I think next year we're going to have to go after the quarterback position, in my opinion, unless I will say unless. Well, no, not even unless, because they're still going to have to bring somebody in. But I mean, but unless if they truly believe that Sam Howell is the guy.
Adam, sorry, I'm just trying to fix the comments. It's not letting me show the super chat. So, Adam, you got a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have been thinking a lot about ice cream puns and draft people. I've got salted caramel Kuiper Jr. so far, which I thought not a bad one. We can do some more in the comment.
Have a scoop of that.
Yeah, do some more in the comments because we need more inane comments coming through, which is good. Yeah, I think I honestly I don't think I can talk about quarterbacks anymore. I've built myself into such a fury with my last comment that I just need to see something happen before I can even be bothered to talk about it. Because, you know, I'm a firm believer that you should believe people when they show you who they are. And I think Schneider's shown us who he is, and that's absolutely fine if that's the way he wants to be. But don't tell us you're not that, and don't have people telling me you're not that. And, you know, hopefully the Howell thing comes good. It would be fantastic and a huge burden. You know, I saw Davis Asu just tweeted, you know, way too early thoughts of what the Seahawks needed in the 2025 draft, and he had quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, and running back. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, apart from that, they'll be fine. So, you know, it'd be really quite helpful if the Sam Howell did turn into a 5-year starter, because they're going to have a lot to do. And so that, you know, the more they can get in now, the better.
Yeah, I think I just want to sort of feel that there's a plan. I think that's the thing, is that, like, what was the plan? I remember 12 months ago, and John said we really wanted to get extra stock for this draft that's just happened, which was the Denver trade, which led to the extra 3rd round pick. And I remember doing a stream, and we may well have talked about this, but I specifically remember doing a stream with Jeff where we both agreed that sounded very much like the Seahawks were planning on, you know, a bold move this year to try and get a quarterback, and that this was going to be a deep quarterback draft, and they would do that. But then that hasn't happened. You know, they ended up trading. They wanted more stock, but then as the season began, they then traded a 2nd rounder for Leonard Williams. So what was the plan? Like, why did they have a plan to get more stock in May that by October or whenever it was that they made the Leonard Williams trade, that had gone completely out the window, that they were trading a massive asset away for Leonard Williams? And it makes me wonder a little bit, do the Seahawks actually have a proper plan in place to go and get a quarterback? Or is it just as simple as, well, we know we need one for the long term, but we're just got to go year to year and see if that person's there. And what ends up happening is that person isn't there, and then they move on to the next year. I'd like to see a bit more targeting of players, you know, and maybe sort of being prepared to make a mistake. And I'd love Jody Allen to empower them to be prepared to make a mistake at that position. Like, go and get that guy in round 1, or trade up. Like, it wouldn't have been that much to trade up for Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy if they liked him, or whatever, you know, whoever it was, Bo Nix, whatever. You know, empower them to say, yeah, if you want to go and get one of those guys, just go and do it. And if it fails, your job's not going to be judged by that failure, because we understand that you've got to go and get that position. I don't think John will lose his job, for example, if Byron Murphy doesn't end up working out. But so why should it be any different for a quarterback? I know GMs get judged in the quarterback picks, but still. Let's get through some super chats. Hunter says, what do you think we learned from the first John and Mike draft? Felt like a classic John draft of reaching for players. What do you think, Robbie?
Again, I don't mind them attacking the trenches, and I think that's kind of what we wanted them to do. So I don't know if it's a classic John draft for reaching for players, but I do like, because I feel like the last 2 years were really solid, good drafts. I think we added 2 really good blue chip players, and then we'll see after that.
Adam?
Yeah, I remember saying on Wednesday night, which feels like an awful long time ago, doesn't it, before draft on the show, that I thought it was interesting how forthright everyone in the building was that John had been in charge of everything that had happened in the past, you know, the previous few drafts and whatever. And I just thought that was interesting. And I know we had the discussion whether that was smokescreen or whatever. But I kind of feel like it was generally a continuation on a similar path. Now, obviously, look, they filled the trenches, but they couldn't not do that really with the first couple of picks. They weren't going to take a running back with the first pick, but it did seem like a general continuation of a trend of who they've been picking recently. Although the sad thing is, without that sort of flashy upside on some picks that would have you really excited to see them play in camp and onwards. But look, people are perhaps thinking we're hypocrites. You know, we said they wanted to build the trenches. They have done. But I think about, I think today, just before the Chargers were about to make their third pick, and Rich Eisen was saying, can they get to 1,000 pounds of weight in 3 picks with the third guy they took? Because the first 2 picks were such heavy guys. And even just that, like when they're talking about building the trenches or whatever, you know, get guys that are just interesting because they're these absolute behemoths and enormous guys that are going to dominate physically. Like they've taken guys on the line, but it doesn't seem like they've taken maulers that you're thinking they're going to be absolute beasts going forward and, you know, bring that physicality that we've been told the team wants to play with next year.
Yeah, I don't think I learned that much about the first John and Mike draft. It kind of just it feels like a to be determined situation. I don't think there was anything noticeably that different or that exciting about it. It's kind of just come and gone. Thank you for the super chat. R Toots, thank you for the super chat as well. A+ draft coverage guys. Brugler's draft guide mentioned character traits like intense competitor and relentless worker for Barner, Knight, and Pritchett. Is this John Schneider overvaluing that versus upside traits? I think that's an interesting question, actually, because we know that the Seahawks have put a lot of faith in character, and that I kept stressing this, and I stressed it all the way through the last draft season when everyone was telling me they were definitely going to draft Jalen Carter, that they've basically had a without compromise approach to character. It does seem as if that has continued since Pete Carroll's departure. Robbie, do you ever think that you can think too much about this? Like, do you have to be prepared to take a couple of edgier guys to hit the jackpot with certain players? Do you have to take the odd occasional calculated gamble, or do you think the Seahawks are right to sort of focus on, you know, A+ football character, and essentially if you say we want you in at 8:30 Monday morning for your first rookie camp, whatever, that you know they're going to be there sort of an hour early, ready to go?
I think John's probably been burnt a little bit by character issues in the past. The Malik McNowell thing, to a certain extent, maybe even Percy Harvin, Jamal Adams. I think he probably is trying to avoid that, and I think he probably places a high value on character. And I do think at some point you need to roll the dice, especially if a player, say Tampa, for example, he dropped and maybe there was a character concern, but he was such a good player. I think at some point you have to roll the dice, especially on a lower round player, and also maybe trust that some of the leadership that you have brought in can help offset that and help build some character around the guy. But I don't know. I think he probably is placing a high value on that.
Odium, thank you, Odium, big supporter of the channel, and thank you again. John Schneider just showed us who he is, and I don't like it. Got too damn cute again. The more I think about it, the more irate I get. Not sure John Schneider is the guy to get us back to the top. Wonder how the new start feels. Adam, does that resonate at all with you? Were the Seahawks too cute today? I definitely think there was probably a bit too much. We've identified who our guys are. We don't really care how everybody else grades them. We just want to make sure that we get Tyrese Knight, AJ Barner, Nehemiah Pritchett into the building, and we're taking them, and that's that. We're not really sort of focused. I think that flied against the sort of what has worked in the last few drafts, which is, and look, I could be completely wrong about that, saying that, but I do wonder a little bit whether they just thought we've determined these are our guys, they fit us, we're taking them, that's that. Whereas I'm not sure. I think other teams are perhaps looking at, what an opportunity here. You know, Jared Wiley's lasted to the Chiefs, and you know that pick for me. I'm not even a massive Jared Wiley guy, but you think, oh God, He's perfect to be like the heir apparent to Kelsey. I don't know. It's how do you feel about it? Is there too much? Were they a bit cute this weekend or not?
Yeah, look, it's such a tough question to answer before a ball's been snapped, because it's just the prime thing where you offer up an opinion that can only really be proven one way or the other. It did, the way you just spelled it out there, I think, is interesting, because it did strike you as almost like this is going to be our drafting philosophy, and we're going to go and get those guys in spite of what other people think we may want to do. And I guess maybe when you have a more experienced GM, I don't know, like John Lynch, for example, doesn't need to worry about what people think about how he's going to draft. He can just go into it because he's got enough of a track record as being the guy doing it to say, this is what we're going to do, 1, 2, 3. And maybe there was a little bit of, we're going to show these guys what we are as drafters. But it's very tricky to say. I mean, it's a really good question, because it's one of those that it will leave you stumped however you want to try and answer it. And you don't want to go too far one way by saying, yes, or the other way. Now, I hate the kind of bit of both answers, but it does feel like you have to give credence to both sides of it on this one, I think.
I'm trying to find the super chats. Usually there's a bar at the top, which means you can just click on it. It will just show you all of the super chats, and it's disappeared. So I'm having to scroll through the whole chat to find these. So apologies if I do miss any. Odim's back on again. Appreciate that. It feels like JS thinks the team is something different from what it is. It wasn't just Pete. It was delusional and had an overinflated ego. I think I do think that has been a flaw within the Seahawks for a long time, that they have had a higher opinion on their team than is probably justified. Noah says, we need blue chip talent to get back to the top. Byron Murphy is the only one that feels like that from this class. I think we win 7 games next year, but with marked improvement on defense. Any reaction to that, Robbie?
I think 7 wins seems a little low for me. I would say maybe 9 right now. But again, I do think the defense is going to be significantly better. I actually expect the offense to be a little better too, just for the simple fact that we don't have Shane Waldron calling the plays. And I think I'm interested to see how they use the running backs a little more and try to get DK more involved. I mean, and Noah Fant for that example. I mean, they brought him back and for a good reason. Hopefully that we'll see some improvement. I guess my biggest fear is just how improved the NFC West is as well, and can we keep up? Did we do enough to keep up with them? Specifically the Rams and the Niners.
Hawks fan Mattman says, where does this leave us in regards to the QB question? If we painted ourselves into a corner, so we have to take one next year. Adam, do you think they have to take one next year? I kind of feel like we've said that for 3 years, or they've got to take one next year, and then they never do. So I'll ask you that. And also on Geno Smith, I hate the fact that I kind of feel like I have to talk like I'm attacking Geno Smith, because I respect what Geno Smith is, which is, I think, a really useful bridge quarterback. And I think he will have some really good moments next season, and some moments where you think, because that's what I think he is as a player. But I just kind of feel almost having him is a detriment to the team a little bit. Like, they almost have to be crap because the QB's crap in order to be in position to draft someone who can be better. Or they've got to go and get somebody better so that we just don't have to have this sort of annual question like we took for granted a little bit when Russell Wilson was at his best, that you don't going into the off season sort of thinking about the quarterback position can be quite tiring, and it can also be quite riddled with anxiety, because you kind of think, well, when are we going to get this answer? When are we going to, who is it going to be? And because the Seahawks never take chances on anybody, it just delays it all. You kind of just left the question lingers for longer than it necessarily should be. And it feels like, because those 6 teams took a quarterback this year, it does feel a little bit like some of them just got fed up awaiting and then ended up reaching. And I really hope the Seahawks don't end up in that place where they think after 3 years of not getting somebody, oh crap, we've got to go and do it now. And they end up doing what Denver's just done with Bo Nix and going, oh, well, we'll just screw it. We'll just take him at 12. Like, I really don't want that to happen either.
Yeah, I think the last 3 years could probably suggest that you're never in a position where you have to take a quarterback, because in all 3 drafts, we would have thought, well, they're definitely going to take a quarterback this year in some capacity, and it hasn't happened. And the world's still spinning on its axis. So yeah, it's not going. I can't imagine it ever getting that desperate. I mean, the Geno discourse is probably too far gone to ever be able to have a rational discussion with someone that you don't necessarily agree with, because you either don't know ball, or you think he's the worst quarterback of all time. So, and apparently no one exists in the middle ground, despite the fact that 90% of people I know actually do exist in that middle ground, but their views are never taken into account. So it's going to be strange for Geno, because whatever he does this year, it's unlikely that he hits either extreme camp and we end up having decent quarterback play that isn't going to push you over the edge and isn't going to be terrible. And you could go into next year saying, well, at the money they're going to give him, the salary cap's going to go up again. Maybe you just stick with it for another year. So who knows? We could have the exact same situation next year, but instead of it being Sam Howell as the backup who doesn't get a next round, maybe it's I don't know. Was it Malik Willis? I've forgotten the guy's name. It's been such an irrelevance in the last few years. Yeah, maybe it's him that plays the role of Sam Howell, the draft hedge. That, well, we got him, so we don't need to draft the quarterback because we got him. Yeah, who knows? That's what it's been for the last 3 years. Yeah. It's just boring to say, but that's literally what it's been. So who knows?
Just to list the quarterbacks who, at this tentative stage, you would say are worth watching. I mean, there's always names that tend to, I say always, there are sometimes names that emerge on top of this. But Quinn Ewers at Texas, Shadir Sanders at Colorado. I've been really pushing this guy. Go and check him out. Max Brosmer. I think it's Brosmer. I mean, I want to say Brosmer, but I think it's pronounced Brosmer. I mean, imagine getting a quarterback whose name is essentially, half of it is the word bro. He's just transferred from New Hampshire to Minnesota, and I think he's got a lot of talent. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on in the Big Ten. And then you have Carson Beck at Georgia, Brady Cook at Missouri, Tyler Van Dyke's shifted over to Wisconsin, finally got away from Mario Cristobal. Cam Ward from Washington State now has the pleasure of playing for Mario Cristobal's awful offense in Miami. Will Howard is at Ohio State, so it will be interesting to see how he gets on. And then you've got Riley Leonard at Notre Dame. I think of those, the thing is that it's a decent crop, but how many of those players make you think there's a franchise quarterback? And none of them have. And this is the thing, when people wonder why Michael Penix went 8th overall, none of the players I've just listed have anything close to the characteristic of Penix's arm. So that's, why a team was happy to take him and create a shit ton of controversy in the process, taking a chance on Penix's arm. None of those players are physically brilliant like Penix with that arm strength. And that's the slight concern. Riley Leonard's got the size, but can he develop as a passer at Notre Dame? Big question mark. Quinn Ewers has not got the size at all. I think he needs some technical improvement still, but he has a lot of skill. So, and then good luck drafting Shadir Sanders, because if you draft Shadir Sanders, you get Deion Sanders. Good luck coaching his son. Godspeed to whoever has to do that. Jopus726 says, Rob, what was your most disappointing Seahawks draft pick? For me, it was the tight end. I'd say the 2 4th-round picks were the most disappointing. I'd find it hard to separate either of them, just because I thought there was a lot of other players who were much more, at least on my board, and that's all I can base it off. No point me just adjusting my opinion because the Seahawks did something. On my board, there were much better players available than the 2 players they took in the 4th round, so I think they were the most disappointing picks for me. Right, there's a few more super chats. If you have got any late questions, chuck them in. We'll get to them to finish. Darth says, I love how Schneider was saying all off-season how he wanted to draft his quarterback by himself, and he doesn't do anything. Yep, we've been into that, Darth. Appreciate the super chat. Okay, sorry that I'm having to scroll down and find them. It's the problem with the system today. And it's making it really difficult. And there was a long gap between that super chat and the next one. So nearly caught up. While I'm doing this, I'm just going to make one. Oh, no, I found one. Thanos Nix says, is it part of John's philosophy not draft quarterbacks? He's running out of time to do it with glaring needs and quarterbacks available for 3 years. Yeah. I think it's part of his philosophy to draft them, I think he's been a little bit too risk averse sometimes. But I also think I have some sympathy with him because I don't want him to reach for the position just for the sake of it. But eventually he's going to run out of time. He's going to have to just go up and get somebody if the player's not in range. You can't wait forever. Mike says, it's days like this that make me grateful. I'm also a huge Manchester City fan. Well, it's okay for some, isn't it? Hawks fan Matman again. Whose drafts are you jealous of? Robbie, is there anybody that you're jealous of? I quite like what the Steelers did with the offensive line.
Yeah, the Steelers are a good one, and I hate that. I quite like what the Rams did as well.
Adam, is there anybody's draft that you think, oh yeah, like a bit of that?
I would be being disingenuous if I said I knew enough about the individuals. It does seem like the Cardinals didn't take advantage of a position they may never be in again. I mean, obviously, they got Harrison just to start with, which is great, but it doesn't appear that they've taken a position of strength and really turned it into something. No, I'm not going to say it's anyone I'm particularly jealous of, because I'd sort of be parroting someone else's opinion if I said it, to be honest.
Commanders, people have said it in the chat, but I forgot about the Commanders. They had a really, really good draft as well.
Yeah, Adam Peters is good, isn't he? Makes you think, doesn't it? Odium says, I was remiss in not thanking you guys for another great year of coverage. Looking forward to another great year ahead. Odium, thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Massively appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who supports the site and the channel. Kind of sad, actually, because you know what? It consumes my life for months. And then tomorrow I'll wake up and be like, what am I going to do? I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to sleep. Ryan says, I could be wrong, but this is my thoughts. The guys who drafted today are just depth pieces or not, as we turn the roster into McDonald's schemes. I definitely feels like we're going to pad out the depth day. I wish it'd been a bit more exciting than that. A bit more, go and get somebody with just a bit more upside and potential. I don't care what the position was. Could have been a trenches pick. I'm not saying it needs to be like, quarterback, because that's exciting. It's just, it just feels very safe. It's just sort of meh today. Darth Soldier says, it's nothing new. Reach every pick. They got lucky with the first 2 years of Pete Carroll and John Schneider. They took down pictures because they know they can't live up. Oh, I'm so glad the pictures things got brought up again. The draft was a nice distraction from that. Hulk Smash says, this offseason was a real eye-opener for John's involvement in past drafts and moves. Rob for GM. Hulk, appreciate the support. If I was made the GM, I would never go on social media ever again. People shout at me because I said that the selection of Tyrese Knight from the University of Texas El Paso was underwhelming. So I can only imagine what they would think if I was in charge of the draft. Blitzy the Clown says, day 1 gets an A, day 2 gets an A, day 3 gets I'm okay with Knight and Barner, but 2 cornerbacks and another right guard. What does it mean for the DB room? Kudos to another fantastic year of drafts coverage. Thank you, Blitzy. You've been a big supporter of the channel, so I appreciate that. The one other thing I wanted to say to finish, and I'm sorry, it's not going to be the most it's not the most positive topic. I am jealous of one thing, Robbie. I've got a cough, so give me a second. There we go. Rams put a video out of Jared Verse racing to the building because they wanted him to call Braden Fisk and tell him that he'd been drafted to play with his best friend from Florida State. And they work so well together on the field and they're so close off it. And I watched that video, and the energy within that room with the GM, with Sean McVay, when Jared Verse gets there, like Jared Verse is already in LA. Byron Murphy said on the radio on Friday morning that he's not going to Seattle until next Thursday. Like Jared Verse was there today, and they were trying to get him in there to call or yesterday. He was there yesterday. He flew straight to LA. And I just looked at it and I just thought the energy is just flying out of the screen and hitting me in the face within that Rams building. And I have to say, when I've watched the Seahawks picks and the videos and stuff, it is pretty low energy. And maybe it means absolutely nothing. But I just wanted, I don't know, Robbie, it made me a bit jealous. Like McVay is clearly, he is a phenom, Sean McVay. And I do like the Verse and Fisk picks for the Rams and the Brennan Jackson pick. And although they are going to really miss Aaron Donald, I would not bet against the Rams being a really difficult opponent again next year. I don't know, man. I just looked at that and thought, that is the kind of energy I'm hoping to see in Seattle. And I ain't feeling it from the videos that the Seahawks are putting out.
Yeah, I mean, it was a super cool video. I think because they were friends, it makes it all that more special. I think that's probably what it was, and that's why you could feel that energy. But I wouldn't say that there was no energy from the Seahawks side. I feel like there was. I just saw some people talking about the Knight not picking up the phone. It was actually kind of funny.
That's it. It wasn't that funny though. Like it was. I'm kind of like watching it. I'm thinking this is actually really kind of awkward. Like what I'm watching it and it's making me sort of a bit stressed. Like I'm thinking, what are they going to do? Like, were they that? They might have been that close to going, don't pick him, because unless you can actually contact the guy, you can't take him.
Yeah.
You have to actually ring him and check he's alive. Like you can't make the pick. So if you couldn't get hold of him, like Schneider was clearly stressed about it. Like, get his agent on the phone. Yeah, we're doing it. And he's like, I was like, oh God, why have they put this out? Like, this is just not fun. And then when Byron Murphy, like the pick, he rings him up because, I don't care what your agent thinks about you. We're going to take you here. And I was just like, yeah, that's probably a joke, John, for you and the agent, like not for the player in the best moment of his life. I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking like crazy here, and I'm just
maybe a little bit. I think probably
I just saw that Rams. No. But I saw the Rams video and thought, oh, that the energy there is remarkable. Like this is special, and I'm not getting that sense. Like Mike McDonald, bless him, he is not good at those moments, is he?
That's fine. As long as he gets good at coaching up the players he's got, I don't really care about the social media videos, to be honest. Like, it's fine. I get the joke by John, maybe a little cheesy, kind of a dad joke, but I just it did seem special, right, with the Verse and the Rams, but that's just again because they were friends and played together, and I feel like that. It was a cool moment for them, and I like seeing some stuff like that. Sucks it was with the Rams.
Not just that, though, but like McVay, the way that McVay talks, like he's on there, we want to get you over here. We're gonna do this. We're gonna, you're gonna get in. Like he's swearing all the time, like, and they're to bleep that out or like blank it out. And I just think, God, the energy of the man. And like, in fairness, you're absolutely right. If Mike McDonald can come, I don't care. I don't need Mike McDonald to come across brilliantly in these videos, but I don't know. I was jealous of McVay. That's basically the point that I'm making.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that.
Adam, have you got anything to say on this last whinge that I've had?
Yeah, I think Schneider and McDonald are both unlucky in the sense that 2024 dictates that this stuff simply must be shown to everyone. And they're clearly not, not everyone is able to do that sort of stuff particularly well with the same energy, and they're not as natural. I mean, McDonald and Schneider did their video just before one of the draft days. It might have been day one, just in front of that Sherman picture, obviously to reinforce the whole pictures thing, which was quite a funny bit. But
I enjoyed that.
It was funny, but neither of them knew what to do with their hands. Like they clearly weren't natural at talking to the camera at all. And again, this doesn't mean anything for going forward or whatever, but I think I mentioned that I was in the players' car park after the Eagles game last year, Monday Night Football, when Drew Lock hit JSN for the winning touchdown. And you would have thought that the energy would have just been crazy, like they've saved the season, but it was really like placid. And if you watch the videos of, when on a Wednesday or something, they had, they put a screen up and they asked the whole team a question as they were walking onto the practice field. And it didn't seem like there was a natural sort of alpha buzz that you could have imagined there would have been 10 years ago with all of the players that we sort of lionize rightly. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I think that the emphasis they've put on character and perhaps a slightly more placid, laid back guy, maybe they are missing a little bit of edge, and a couple of, harnessable loose cannons, should we say, if that's even not too much of an oxymoron. But they do feel like a little bit of just a bland group, front-facingly bland at the moment. And that may not be what I like in public at all, in private at all. The locker room could be brilliant. And I know we're not really talking about anything here. We're just sort of talking about stuff, and none of this could mean anything, but we're just talking about stuff. And I just think, they're a little bit placid and bland.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. We are not, there's no point sort of overreacting. We're talking like a bunch of friends would talk about the team if we were in a bar. Like that's kind of what it is. I just watched the energy from that McVay video and just thought, wow, it's a reminder of just how special McVay is, that he is clearly a genius schematically, but just the energy that he provides. And listen, I don't think Pete Carroll obviously clearly had a lot of energy, but I think McVay he is something else. And it just made me realize how little energy there was in the Seahawks videos. And the DK Metcalf video, for example, was so good. Like seeing that call come in was so special. And every now and again, you get a video like that, don't you? Or you get a really emotional call or a great moment that is worth putting on social media. I do kind of think from a Seahawks perspective, you don't have to put every phone call on social media, especially when the guy is not even answering the phone. Like that one could have probably just gone in the cutting room floor. What I will say, like Jason sent this message in saying, cool social media videos don't win Super Bowls last time I checked. Well, last time I checked, Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl in the last few years and was competing in another one. And I'd freaking love to be able to do that. So the guy has got something there. And it doesn't really matter that Mike McDonald is not. It was noticeably low energy in some of those videos and didn't really know what to say. Kevin says Mike McDonald in a late super chat. Mike McDonald looks like he needs an espresso, maybe, or a Lucozade or something like that. They don't have Lucozade in America, do they, Adam?
Well, my accent isn't fake English, so it's a real English accent. So I wouldn't actually know. If apart from the week or so a year I spent in America, Robbie might know more than me.
Do you know what a Lucozade is?
No, I've never heard of it.
See, you're missing out, man. Like the zero sugar Lucozade, the purple one, it's an all-time drink for me. So you are missing out there.
Is that like a Gatorade?
I don't know. Is a Gatorade still, or is it carbonated?
No, it's not carbonated.
Yeah, it's carbonated. Lucosade's a carbonated drink.
Not all of them. You can get the ones with the squeezy ones.
Oh yeah, it's a Lucozade Sport.
Sport ones. Now this is good chat. This is what they.
Yeah.
Let's get the 2025 mock drafts on. Come on, there must be a board somewhere. Must be something we can do.
Do you like that comment?
Good.
Abe Lucozade. Yeah, I like that. That's a great punnage from Matt. Fantastic. Excellent. Well, there we go. So, that's the wrong one. Lucozade is a British brand of soft drinks and energy drinks manufactured and marketed by the Japanese company. I didn't know it was marketed by a Japanese company. But it's been a big part of my life. Someone has asked whether it's the British Red Bull. It's no. Red Bull's more. I detest the taste of Red Bull, but that's because I got drunk on it when I was 18, and on Red Bull and vodka, so I can't have it anymore. Just what this chat needed. This is providing the Lucozade talk is making up for a rather low energy third day of the draft all round. So there we go, fellas. Appreciate it. So I'm going to put my article up shortly, basically saying how underwhelmed I was by the third day. I will then post it on Twitter to encourage all of the people to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about again. And then tomorrow I will sleep and get on with the 2025 stuff, I guess. Bring it on. Here's to another 12 months. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you to everybody who sort of watched these live streams. We've had some terrific numbers over the last 3 days. Really appreciate all of the super chats. If you could do us one final favor and just like the video, leave a comment in the comment section, all of that usual stuff. Subscribe because we'll have more videos coming up. And SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. So that was the 2024 draft. It came and went in no time at all. Until next time, bye for now.